If you're interested in knowing the legal requirements that make a contract valid, then keep on watching because it's coming right up. Hello and welcome to Talking Smart to the Dando Man. In this channel we do videos which help equip you with the knowledge, skills and information that you need in order to start and grow your business. So if you're interested in content like that, then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell in order to get more videos like this in future. Today we'll be talking about the legal requirements that make a contract valid. Before you watch, I'd suggest that you watch this video about the basic terminology regarding the law of contract, and it will make you understand this video a whole lot more. Basically, contracts are a part of our everyday lives. We enter into contracts each and every day, from entering into a taxi to buying groceries to more serious contracts such as entering into an agreement with a partner or entering into a deal with a supplier. Contracts are a part of our everyday life. That is why it is important for you to educate yourself on the requirements, on the legal requirements, in order for the contract to be considered valid, because you might find yourself having entered into a contract which the courts might toss out later on because it is invalid. So that is why it is important for you to know more about the legal requirements and basically the law of contract. But that is why the Dando Man is here. Basically, a contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more persons. In order for a contract to be regarded as valid, it needs to meet certain legal requirements under the law. Now, when a contract is regarded as valid, it means that it gives rise to obligations between the contracting parties and therefore enforceable in the court of law. Without any of these legal requirements, the contract is void, which means that it gives rise to no obligations and therefore unenforceable in a court of law. Now, the first legal requirement that is needed in order to make a contract valid is that there must be serious intention between the contracting parties. Both parties need to have the serious intention to want to legally bind themselves with the agreement. This means that, for example, a joke cannot be taken as a valid contract. If the requirement of serious intention is missing, then the contract will be invalid or null and void. The second legal requirement that is needed in order to make a contract valid is consensus. Basically, what consensus means is that both the contracting parties need to have a meeting of minds or need to agree on all the terms of the contract. That means that if there's anything one of the contracting party does not agree with and they conclude the contract, that contract will be invalid because the requirement of consensus is missing. It happens sometimes that consensus is obtained, but obtained in an improper manner. This is when we say that consensus is defective. This then makes the contract voidable. I will explain one day on what all of that means. But for today, all you need to know is that if consensus is missing, then the contract will be invalid. The third legal requirement that is needed in order to make a contract valid is contractual capacity. Contractual capacity simply means that you have the capacity to enter into contracts. Now, capacity is divided into three main parts. No contractual capacity, which means that you cannot enter into contracts, and limited contractual capacity. That means that you can enter into some contracts, but other contracts you can't, and you will need supervision in some instances. Then the third is full contractual capacity, which means that you can enter into any contract freely without any assistance at all. In terms of the law, people who have no contractual capacity are people, number one, who are below the age of 7. They have no contractual capacity because of their age, of course. Then people who are drunk or drugged to the extent that they don't know what they are doing. And also the third one are people who are mentally ill. However, there is an exception. Sometimes people who are mentally ill have what we call a lucid moment. That means a moment of reason or a moment whereby they are mentally aware and capable, and in those instances they can enter into contracts and they have full contractual capacity. But those people have no contractual capacity. And then people who have limited contractual capacity are basically minors above the age of 7 and below the age of 18. Those people have limited contractual capacity. They need a legal guardian to assist them when they enter into contracts. They can enter into some contracts freely without any assistance from the guardians, and those contracts are contracts which are for the benefit of the minor. And other contracts as well, maybe I'll explain one day. Other people who have limited contractual capacity are what we call prodigals. Basically someone who squanders their money. Basically, if the requirements of contractual capacity is missing, for example, you enter into a contract with a minor, then the contract will be invalid. But however, there are some circumstances which, are really special, and the law is complicated. So the next legal requirement which is needed in order to make a contract valid is the requirement of lawfulness. Basically, this means that a contract or the content of the contract or the obligations which arise thereof need to be legal. Basically, that means that if you hire James Bond, for example, to go kill someone for you, then he doesn't do it, that you can't really go to the court and tell them that he breached the contract, because the contract is basically invalid because what you're asking him to do is illegal. You get that. Why would you do that? Okay, anyways, the fifth requirement that is needed in order to make a contract valid is the performance must be possible. That means that at the time that the contract was concluded, the performance was possible, which means that you cannot sell me a car which you don't have. But it goes deeper than that, and I'll explain it in later videos. Wow, I'm making so many promises. Hope I can keep them. That means that if performance is impossible, then the contract is invalid. Then the last requirement that is needed in order to make a contract valid is the requirement of formalities. Okay, basically formalities are things that you have to do in order for a contract to be considered valid, in order for a contract to be concluded. For example, it has to be in writing, it has to be signed, and so on and so forth. But many contracts don't really need formalities, if any at all. For example, contracts, you can conclude a verbal contracts. Not all contracts have to be written. However, there are certain contracts which require certain formalities under the law which have to be concluded in order for the contract to be considered valid. For example, in some cases, some contracts need to be notarially executed, and some have to be written and registered. I think that has to do with property. For example, the National Credit Act requires people when entering into credit agreements to have the contracts written and signed by the contracting parties. So basically those are, for example, contracts which need certain formalities which in order for them to be concluded and then considered valid. Basically, the contracting parties can also prescribe certain formalities that need to be met in order for the contract to be concluded. Then those formalities are met, then the contract will be valid, with obviously all the requirements as well which are there. Yes. That's it from me. Thank you very much for joining me for today's edition of Talking Smart with the Dando Man. If you found this video valuable, please press the like button, comment, share it with your friends and whoever else you know, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me. Please don't forget to go on our Facebook and Instagram page at Talking Smart and Talking Smart with the Dando Man respectively. And please go listen to our podcast. It's amazing, and we'll be bringing some guests soon. Yeah, that's it. Remember, you'll never turn your dreams into a reality while you're still asleep.